All right, now that we are recording and I have a time of 3:01, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. Just kind of a sound check. Do we have anybody online and can they hear us okay? Any hands, anybody online? I'm not seeing anybody up there.
Cherie would be the phone number 530.
530.
I'm not sure who Samsung SM is.
So Cherie, I see you're on mute. I'll go ahead and make sure that we call on you during public comment, make sure you can hear, but let's go ahead and get underway. And I underlined the part that says roll call this time because I always forget that. So let's begin with roll call and we'll move to Pledge of Allegiance. So Elizabeth, take it away.
Member Miller,
Here.
Secretary Hellick. Here. Vice Chair Gorence.
Here.
Sheriff Fisher,
Present.
Liaison Stovall,
Present.
and Liaison McDonald.
Present. And if I may ask Director McDonald to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This is the Thursday, February 22nd Finance Committee of the Georgetown Divide Public Utility District. We are here to be a sounding board for folks to make sure you have questions answered and concerns vetted over the dollars that you spend on water as customers of GD PUD. And let's get on with it. Move on to adoption of today's agenda. Anybody have any questions, comments, or a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept it.
I hear a motion.
I'll second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Today's today's agenda is approved. We move from there to public forum. So anyone may take this time to address anything that's not on the rest of our agenda. And let me open it up to the floor here, and with no comments here, let's take it to the phones.
So we do have a comment from Ms. Cherie.
See a hand up?
Yes, I do.
Just
Can
to
you
let
hear
you
me?
know, Cherie, I do see your letter attached to the packet here, so we have received the letter that you sent in. I didn't know if you wanted to address that or elaborate on it. But go ahead,
No.
you have the. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because I can't tell. This is a new phone and I'm not used to. Wait a minute, let me get my comments.
Loud and clear.
Okay, hold on a second. Slow internet here.
Sounds pretty good to us.
Well, yeah, that part, but I also trying to read my email. Basically what it is I'm concerned that we got this information around 1 o'clock today for the budget. And that was the main item on the budget, on the agenda was the budget review recommendation. And you only get 2 hours before the meeting to do an extensive document like that. Doesn't make sense to me. That's it.
So this is, the budget is adopted when is the final budget for next, so the fiscal year is July 1st.
July 1st.
So, and then it's generally adopted by the board in June or
May or
late
June.
May, June. So that's part of the purpose. So this is not the end of the process. It's the very beginning. We do want to get it out there in public so that there's a number of opportunities to comment on it between now and its
Okay.
adoption in May.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I had 2 hours to look at it.
We're
So how many
aware.
hours?
I will.
Okay, how many hours did the committee have to look at it? 2
They
hours?
just got it in front of them just now.
Same, it's preliminary for us as well. So
Okay.
we're all
All right,
learning
well-
about it together today.
I will apologize. We were tightening loose screws and we were making sure that everything was right. I would rather put out something that's a little bit more solid later and unfortunately give less review time than putting out something that's gonna get changed last minute. And so hopefully we answered any of the questions that may have come up. So yeah, this is like Chairman Fisher said, this is not the first, or excuse me, not the last time you're gonna see this, only the first time.
And Cherie, I believe Steve may be taking a copy for you of the schedule for 2024 for our meetings. So we will also be considering, I presume we'll be considering the budget on, where are we, Finance Committee, April 25th. And I believe is there a joint meeting in May, but we'll be,
So we'll be doing it in March,
Okay.
and in April, and then our goal is at that April meeting that we have either a joint meeting with the board or the budget is in such a place that you can recommend to the board that you approve the budget at that point, and we can go on to the next board meeting in May.
It's my recollection, we talked about that calendar last month.
Yeah, so the calendar he actually received is a calendar of the meetings, so it's board meetings,
Yep.
finance meetings and irrigation meetings.
Right.
okay. So we'll be back here March 28th, and that will be an opportunity where we still have time to talk about ideas, budget ideas, and then April 25th, I think, will be the recommendation. So a couple more opportunities
Okay.
coming up.
Well, I'm fully aware that I've been going to meetings 6.5 years. I mean, I'm aware of the process. My thing is the notification of the public. We don't get an email that they put something up on there at 1:00. It's like the notification when things get added and subtracted and revised. And it's not
So-
just the finance committee, it's other meetings that I have a problem with.
There was an email sent out as it was posted.
No, I didn't receive it because I inquired about it at 1:45. Anyway, that's what my complaint is. We do not receive emails when you update, only when you put the agenda on.
Cherie, I will say we directed an email to you directly, and you were one of the named recipients when it got posted online, so you would have a copy of it.
Okay. And Sheree, I do know that you know the process very well. Some of our comments assume that other folks will be watching this too, so take
Okay.
opportunities to inform more broadly. Don't mean to test
All
your
right.
knowledge though. All right.
Well, I got a little.
All right, any other public comments? If not, we can move on to approval of the minutes from our regular meeting of January 25th. We're gonna have a chance to look at those, and are there any comments on the minutes? If not, I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Hear a
I'll
motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Minutes from January 25th are approved. That brings us to item number 5, informational items and the financial report. So who wants to take that one?
So, we'll just open this up to any questions or comments that may come from the committee or from the board liaisons, and then we can open it up for public comment after that. We have Jessica Buckle here, finance manager, and myself, who could hopefully answer any questions.
Anything in your mind's anomalous in this year's budget? Any quirks in revenue receipts, any unexpected expenditures that?
The thing that we've seen, are you referring to the budget we're in right now?
The current fiscal year
Yeah,
budget?
currently, we have received a larger property tax statement, and we're trying to figure out if that's, that's gonna be seeing that moving forward. We don't get told beforehand what our check's gonna look like, we just kind of get a check and we're, oh, hey. So we're hoping that the larger amount is going to continue. So that's something that we did see anomalous. Would say no real large expenditures or anything that we see on the horizon. Just continuing to, play cleanup after the rains and stuff up north. That's about it, up country.
Are you gonna inquire about the increase in the amount that's been provided, taxes? Is there new assessments? What's going on? Do you know? Any idea?
I was gonna give it some time.
Okay,
We just got it and they're not very friendly to deal with, so I was hoping tax season kind of blow over.
that's fine.
I'm not talking about income taxes, but property tax season, so with the holidays and everything, I have a contact I'm gonna ask, but I'm assuming it's just because property taxes went up.
Yeah.
And we have new special fire district tax, so we ourselves had to pay taxes this year to the fire district For the first time?
If I were to guess, it's a reassessment that I mean, it wasn't anomalous in the sense that, oh my gosh, they sent us way too much money.
Wrong check.
It was anomalous in the sense that it was maybe 25% higher. It went from right around $950,000, and I think it was right below, like, 1.2, right below 1.3. So, I mean, it was a good jump, but it wasn't anything that is like raising a whole lot of red flags for us.
Didn't the state delay some tax deadlines for COVID? Could that be catching up from the COVID
No, we
deadlines,
get
or is that
those
past?
checks in July.
Okay.
So I would say. People pay their taxes in different ways, but the most common are through their mortgages. With their mortgage payments, they pay the mortgage company and the mortgage company pays it on time. And then there's people that pay it in full every year. And then the majority of people up here have a monthly installment plan worked out through the county. So that check, that $78,000 we normally get in July, those are all the people that have been paying monthly payments. They're not included in those two biannual payments. We get it in July when they've shored up all their year-end tax, income tax,
Okay.
property tax payments, and then we get a lump sum in July. But I haven't seen anything come in directly related to any kind of forgiveness for COVID or.
Okay.
That's all just wrapped into the normal payments we get.
But I do think I hear you saying you're not gonna run out and commit the money to anything until you do a little more research on
I don't
how
wanna ask
stable
about
it
it
is,
either.
right? Yeah.
What if they like take it back?
No.
Better to know than to have that popped on you.
Better to know they're gonna take it back and have some warning than not.
Yeah.
It's only $200,000. I mean, it
Which
wouldn't
sometimes
put us
happens.
in the poorhouse.
I will give the committee the wherewithal to know that we are not spending this. It is part of our operating budget. It is what we use to build our operating reserve. And it is currently sitting in our California class, earning 4.65%.
Actually, we were
Actually,
at 5.6.
I did miss, it
Nice.
is 5.6%, so
Nice.
Hey.
we
It
are.
dropped
there you
down
go.
from 5.7.
Nice.
We have utilized our California class much like a savings account, and they were really easy, good with in and out transactions, so it's been fantastic to have that high yield savings account.
Yeah, that's nice.
Because they clawed back, we're keeping the 5.65.
It's probably not an issue.
Okay.
I'll give you their number.
I,
They can cancel the check now if they want, because it's already been cashed.
I also noticed we're a little bit over budget on 5,400 and 5,600. Are we still okay with what we currently have allocated in the budget for those two accounts?
So we are a little bit above where we would like to be, but I think we're still well within track.
Okay.
So
Those are the main two.
5,400 is,
Transmission distribution.
yeah, the treated water, that is, a lot of times we get regulatory costs that kind of hit hard on those ones, and so those are one-time costs.
Okay.
And then what was the other one you said, 56?
Yeah, administration.
Yes, again, a lot of one-time upfront costs, the UAL is biggest hit in that, accounting. There has been some, extra costs that we have tried to kind of buffer for and allocate in, so we're keeping an eye on it.
Well, like if you notice the government regulations fees, those are all paid. So it looks like we're over budget, but we're not expecting any more fees for that account.
Do they bill you all at once
Yes.
for this?
Mhm.
So we have like a dam fee, one of our biggest fees is.
Aren't they all?
It's a dam fee.
And the damn fees went up this year too.
You totally said it, didn't even think about it before I said it, but, it's about $100,000 and we have to pay that up front. And then we have all the little dams that we have to do, as well. And so those are all inspections that we have to pay and fees. And then our water rights fees, those are all paid at once. So these aren't like anomalous where we have to pay like monthly fees.
Right.
They're like a yearly annual fee.
Got it.
And the insurance and, workers' comp and the general liability insurance, we pay quarterly. And that's all dependent on salaries earned, not what's budgeted.
Right. Right, makes sense.
So we report that quarterly, and then they tell us how much we owe.
What about all the pension stuff?
Yeah, it's all
That's,
paid up front.
that's all paid up front, but it's calculated from the prior year, and then we get that from the audit.
Okay, so they take your unfunded liability and put it into your current bill for pensions.
Mhm.
Okay, got it.
So they tell us usually May.
Got it.
What we're gonna owe for the next year. And then they actually project 2 years, for sure what we're paying this year, then they project, so that's what I'm using for the budget. Is what they projected last year, next fiscal year would be,
Yeah.
which was 6.7% increase.
Thank you.
Mhm. But I think one thing we have to take in consideration. And I think if needed, Nick could elaborate on this, but with this last year's budget, the fiscal year we're in right now. We didn't really budget for the ongoing mosquito fire. Stuff. We put a little bit extra in there, but we didn't want to. Pad it because it was. Maybe a one-time problem fiscal year 22 or fiscal year 22-23, where we were really over, but we're gonna get that money back. We are going to get substantial amount of funds back from FEMA and where else, but we're still gonna have ongoing costs for erosion control and everything else up there. So we're gonna be going over because we didn't really put emergency slush into those funds.
Right.
Into those funds that are salaries and overtime, it's mostly overtime and materials and supplies. But we should be considering that for next year, because this is gonna be ongoing.
Well, we'll talk offline, but, we are hopefully coming closer to, litigating this, and we will be able to recover some of those costs through litigation. You know, I can't guarantee
Got it.
anything, but that is definitely something that, you know, is an overage that we're spending on, but there is the hope that that gets reimbursed to us at some point. And yes, she is correct that there is some FEMA money for, dredging and the, silt removal in the, oh goodness, I'm totally having a brain fart here. In the canals, and so there's work that we're getting reimbursed for already for some of that. But there is some additional costs that we're working on with, through the litigation process.
And I think my ultimate point is that even if we were to be compensated back, our operating expenses are still gonna show that work being performed. So we should take into consideration that even though our balance sheet is going to balance in the end, it's still operating costs. That labor and materials and supplies, and we should take that into account.
What do you expect to balance it with this year? What offsetting revenue would you, or what savings from other areas do you think?
So we did do put some of it in capital improvement.
Mhm.
So,
And there was a little bit of over budgeting in certain areas. We may not have gone a little high enough, but I think we're going to be able to be okay with what we have in capital improvement right now to offset some of those costs. We don't see as many of the projects in capital improvement going forward, so we will probably come back with a budget amendment before the end of the year to reallocate some of those funds around.
Okay,
Right now, we're kind of at, the 11th hour, so to speak, of these, you know, having to outlay these costs, and so doing something but prematurely.
You don't wanna do it more than once.
Can't really say a whole lot, because
Right.
the timing on it is gonna really be tricky on when everything happens, and so we may not have to budget for it next year, but we may have it even before the end of the fiscal year.
all right. Any public comments on financial reports for the current fiscal year?
We do have an online
Hand up.
comment.
Hello?
Sherry, go ahead.
Okay. Check number 35706, Perk Rentals. Anybody have any idea?
We are renting a dump truck because our dump truck is currently down and broken.
Okay. And then check 35813, $3,030. Is that employee related?
Please, 3,000, what was it?
3581.
It's check 35813. Way
Over
at
there.
the bottom.
Micah Abraham Cordero.
It's operations. I can look it up, but I don't remember.
Yeah, we could
So
get
it's
it.
like a contractor or something?
I would imagine so. It's not an employee.
Okay.
I can-
And then, why are we not getting the year-to-date vendor report? It's only for the month of January.
Because I spaced it, but if you wanna send me an email or send the EA an email, we can get you a year-to-date one.
Okay, but weren't you supposed to be including year-to-date in each, financial report?
I believe what she just said was it was an oversight. And if you
Okay,
would
I
like
didn't
to
hear that.
receive it. She just said that.
Okay. I have, audio problems on this side. All right, thank you.
Okay. So that was check to Mike Abraham Cordero, and then you said that was a service rather than an employee.
I mean, I imagine
Have to look.
we can get the information.
All right,
I have a general question.
sir.
When I first look at the budget, I go through and say, well, okay, what percent of the year is gone? What percent of the money is gone? And, I've noticed that there's some things that are pretty low, and I guess my question is just to the general manager, is there anything in particular that concerns you, or? I mean, I know some of the stuff gets spent in January, in November and December, and the percentage ends up with a really small amount, and, I just look at it and go, well, I guess we don't do much of that in, March and April.
I would say the one thing that is a little bit concerning is overtime. But I don't see it as something that we really need to make a huge adjustment to. I think we're gonna finish the year pretty well, close, if maybe a little over. And so that's the only thing that would concern me. But other than that, everything else seems to be right on track. It's like we say kind of every year, some of these costs, they're just upfront costs, and so we been taking those into account. And when we look at those numbers, it looks really bad, kind of right now, right now we should be about 58% of the budget. Right? If you look at the months and kind of where we're at, and if you're a little bit, before high or low of that, then we're doing really good.
Yeah, I just go through like I just did today is look for anything that's under 42%.
Yeah, it's exactly what we do as well.
And so, like I said, there are some that for like there's 3% left, but you look at it and you go, oh yeah, that's because we paid at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay.
100%.
Jessica made these graphs, so it's it's easy to ask the question. Now that it's right. And the only other point I'm going to make about your question is, as a Navy captain, you asked a general question, it didn't. Anyway, other than that.
Says the
I
Marine.
could go through it line by line.
Well, No, I was just gonna, the only comment I was gonna say is that, overall, it looks like we're right on. I mean, generally speaking, you're gonna have some high, some low. Did you miss it by a lot? Or did you miss it by a little bit? So then-
Except for those damn peas.
Well, there's always stuff that happens, right?
Those damn fees.
There's always stuff that happens.
Just
Frankly, I
expect
think
the
it looks pretty good.
one Going up too.
Which means we probably did a pretty decent job last year, all of us collectively, in putting together the budget.
Yeah, I mean, there's always gonna be areas where we have to put money, we park money for certain things and we may never spend them, but sometimes they have to be there.
Right.
And then there's other areas where we either, undervalue something or underestimate something, and that's where we can kind of, massage the budget at the end to make sure that we come out with, we're not going over budget. The bottom line is the bottom line, and we're trying to stay within that bottom line. I'm not sure if that's an additional question, but we do have another hand raised online as well.
Oh, we do. Just before we go back to Sheree, I was gonna ask, so on overtime, caught my attention there. I've seen overtime caused by anomalies and emergencies. I've also seen overtime caused by being on the verge of needing to hire an additional staff to take up workload. So what do you think is causing the overtime?
It's the emergency. It's responding to the emergency. It's doing extra erosion control work. We've had extra project work to rebuild things. So much of those costs are reimbursable to us. We just have
Okay.
to, that's kind of a waiting game, unfortunately.
Okay,
And what I've noticed on overtime, at least in the budget, you're running less than 10%, around 10% of what your actual salaries are,
Oh, yeah.
which is low.
Oh, yes.
Which is low. I mean, you're
Yes.
not running overtime at 25% or 30% of your salary. So as long as you keep it below 10% or below, that's entirely reasonable for emergencies, where you don't have to get into the hiring issue.
And we are fully fully staffed. We have one temp employee right now. We did have one person move on, but we are fully staffed at the moment, so.
Sheree, back to you.
Yeah, I have a question. Since the MOU is not completed for, local one, and there's at least 3.5 years of back pay, is that reflected somewhere in this budget? Or is that coming out of reserves?
There's no back
What you
pay,
talking about?
there's no back pay being offered.
Okay, even though their, MOU expired in December 2021?
Yeah, but the
It's not- it's just,
union protocols that we continue with them.
This is not a discussion item for this. We're not even close to what we're talking about here.
I'm talking about the dollar amount that would need to be paid out. You're saying there's no dollar amount that will be paid out for the past.
We are talking
3.5
about
years.
finance reports right now. And
About About the MOU for salaries for local number one.
Yes, we are talking about the finance reports. How is the MOU for local one related to the finance reports of this fiscal year?
I think she's saying, is
Okay,
there
because,
anything
because,
outstanding
so you're-
during
It's not on the agenda.
signing that would affect
will they
this?
get back pay? Will they
do
get
not-
back pay?
No, they do not.
They do not get back pay. I'm not sure where you're coming up with that. That's not even in negotiations.
Okay. So then my
The
other
answer-
question is, at the next budget review, will we get a revenue page, a total expense page, a detail page for each department, and the employee compensation chart?
We will
For
be-
this current year or for proposed?
For
budget?
the budget that we're going into, that you're doing reviews on, like we got last year. We had detail pages, employee compensation page. There's
I know, but I
no
can't-
total, like,
You said review,
This is-
which means current.
Sheree, I'm just gonna step in. This is like the first time we're looking at this.
I know
I-
that. I'm asking at the
But
next
hold on, hold
budget or
on.
the one after that.
You asked a question. Please afford me the time to answer your question. We are taking this piece by piece. Yes, there are lots of things that are not included on here. We are working on the wages and benefits portion of the budget today, which we're not really there yet. We're still on the previous item, so we're already getting ahead of ourselves with the agenda. And yes.
I
all of
thought
that
we
will
were on
be-
the budget.
No, we haven't even made it there yet. We're still asking questions about the financial reports.
We're still on current year finance. We haven't
We're
gotten
on
to the
item
action
number
items yet,
5,
Sheree.
not 6.
Okay, well, I thought after public comment, you would have went to the next, section. All right, well, I'll ask that at the budget stage.
I just
Okay.
answered your question, so please don't ask it again.
Why not? It's public comment.
But you can't ask the same question multiple times and expect a different answer. I understand you want all these things. Yes, all of that will come in time.
Okay, that was my question. Will we receive that at the next budget presentation? Thank you.
All right, I think that closes comments on number 5, and that takes us into action items, number 6A. Possible action, develop recommendations for staff to implement prior to presentation to the board of directors. Going to introduce that in any detail, one of you?
Sorry, I was,
We can turn the PowerPoint on.
yeah, we have a PowerPoint to go over, so, we're gonna go through the PowerPoint. What we're gonna go over today is we have all of the wages, benefits, salaries, the non-operating expenses, so it is the, you know, the not the material, the not supplies. This is some of the things that, we don't really have a lot of control over. So we wanted to go over those numbers and show where increases are coming. And then, we do have some numbers worked out, 5,600, and we have the, where the capital improvement plan is currently that we would like to go over. So that is it. We have not proposed anything. So what we're gonna do there is propose, any projects, but I also have, an explanation as to why we don't have a capital improvement plan just yet. When we get there, I'd like to get to that.
Okay.
Cherie, I want to just check with you. We're sharing the PowerPoint on the screen. Are you able to see it?
I'm on the phone. I'm on the phone.
Okay.
You know, the telephone. No, I cannot see it.
We'll try to be as descriptive as we can be, I guess.
Well, I have the PowerPoint that I downloaded from the webpage.
Okay, great,
That's
okay,
great.
good.
So if you can go up to the next slide, please. So we're looking at 5,100 source of supply. What you can see here is we have the salaries, they're gonna increase by approximately 11%. This is taking into account proposed percentages for the new MOU. So this is, and I can't disclose those yet, but I mean, if you wanted to do back math, you could figure out back math, but those salaries are with the proposed MOU increases, okay? Overtime, you can see we're keeping that flat. We're right about 12,000 of 14,000. So that is where you guys asked where concern was. That is one of the areas. I would also say that, you know, the winter time is where we see most of that overtime. So hopefully moving forward, we don't continue to go over.
Well, that and irrigation.
Correct. Yes, you are correct. Standby pay, we're spot on. We do have an increase in standby pay, and again, that increase is coming from a proposed increase in
Okay.
MOU, so we are already looking at those numbers. Payroll taxes, you can see that we're spot on, but we do calculate those based on the salaries that will be paid out. Health insurance, those, I'm sorry? Health insurance is we get told a general outlook on health insurance. We don't know that until, we know what it'll be for this calendar year, but we don't know what it'll be for next calendar year because they don't fit in our fiscal year. They fit within calendar years of increases and changes. So we won't know what next year's calendar year changes to health insurance will be until approximately, it's before that, because it's
It's
before
open
open enrollment. So we will know probably by September what it'll be like next year. So we do take a little bit of liberty and we do increase based on a percentage. For workers' comp, again, that is based upon salaries. So that is a number that we base on salaries. PERS UAL, those we actually did receive those, I think. Yeah.
That's what we talked about earlier, so we knew what it was going to be for this year when we paid it, and for next year, we have a proposed percentage increase.
Yes.
So that's what I went off of.
So that UAL number is, we don't have any control over that. We are forced to pay that. And so that's the proposed number that we have.
And just for a minute here, they're also in the health insurance plan, the union health insurance plan. These guys?
Correct. Who, when you say use, I just wanna make
I'm
sure.
looking at the local one, the old MOU for local one, and they.
The local one is only management and the inside staff.
Okay.
Local 39 is.
But all local 39 and local 1 are all JPIA insurance.
Yes, it's all the same. We can't offer different insurance to different bargaining units.
Right.
And we do have restrictions because JPIA, there are certain restrictions that we have to offer. I.e., we have to offer the lowest employee only plan fully paid. That is one of the rules that JPIA has. And so that is one of the things that we offer. And then we have a certain percentage that we offer to employees who have dependents and or It's called employee plus one, and then employee plus dependents.
Understood.
I would be happy
Public in a
to,
minute.
I would be happy, I don't wanna, continue on until, if there's questions here. The same explanation will be for the next ones. We can go over the percentages for the next ones, but, Mr. Chairman, if you wanna open up for questions either to online or to in the room, or to, from you all, we can do that now.
One question, one comment, and I'll open up to the board and then to the public. So are any of these cost increases attributable to staff moving between different funds, or all of them straight across? Just, these are increases proportionally to last year's staff.
When you say different, I'm not quite sure I understand.
I think in some of the years you've reorganized and moved staff that were saying they're in 5,200, 5,100. That's not what we're looking at here, though. That's
No,
all just
we
proportional
have-
increases.
We have worked out those irregularities.
Okay,
And this is a straight across, these would be increases based upon MOU.
Yeah.
Based upon COLAs and based upon just straight across.
Got it.
No changes this year.
PERS costs are driven by PERS at the state level. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
Okay, so not discretionary. The other, I just wanted to have just an observation, and check me if I'm wrong, but the reason we exist is to promote transparency, but we do need to be clear that for every public agency governed by a board in California, there are certain things that are confidential, and it's pending litigation, it's labor negotiation, real and property negotiations are the three that come to mind. I just want that to be clear. It's not that we don't want to be forthright with things. There are just by nature those things in every public agency that until they become executed are confidential. And it's just because an agency would be behind the eight ball in any kind of a negotiation or a legal position if they didn't have the opportunity for some of those things to stay confidential while the two parties are at the table. So I just wanted to make that point to everybody. Nobody's trying to be non-transparent. There's just those things are the way they are.
That's correct. I do have one thing I want to add before we open this up to comment, if that's okay. And I appreciate that statement. That's spot on. You may notice that there is the pension expense that you see there. It's $816,542. Really quickly, an explanation of what that means and what that is. That is a number that is born out of our audit. And it is basically if everybody here who works, every employee goes all the way through their tenure here, retires with the district, those would be the attributable costs to the pension plan the district would have to bear. So that doesn't take into account if anybody leaves. It doesn't take into account if, and I'm gonna say this on the record, God forbid, somebody passes away after they retire, all those costs, they go away. So we don't cover those costs anymore. But just so you're aware of what that is, they call it, it's really weird how auditors do this. It's called a revenue, but it's actually a long-term expense that we have to pay down the line. So I don't quite understand why we want to call it a revenue, but they always list it as a revenue. And so, but we actually put it in here as a cost. Because it's something that they put in that we want to just be very transparent about, that this is something that PERS sends us. They tell us what this number is. Okay?
And the government code that
Yeah.
brought Gatsby 68 into existence now says that we have to disclose it in our end of year financial statements.
But you don't have to fund it.
We have to list
wait.
it as a long-term debt.
The UAL basically funds this.
Right.
When we pay that UAL cost, a portion of that is going into this.
Right.
So that 816, it could be nothing. Say the market goes, bonkers. That number would go away in the long term. However, this is kind of our liability. It's one of the liabilities that we have to account for.
Any other committee comments or questions about the proposed budget?
Are we gonna go through each department?
We can go through each department, yeah. I wanted to open it up. The next couple will be the same, until we get to 5,600.
I was just curious, like at 5,300, it's only 6% total increase and.
do you wanna just do this real quick and see, I think there was one comment from,
Sure.
and then,
Take comments.
Yeah. Chairman Fisher, I believe Mr. Dowd has a
We're
comment.
ready to go to public comment?
Yeah, maybe I missed something on the UAL, but in the previous years, it was 11,000, 9,000, 10,000, 10,000, and 54,000. What did I miss there? And then it jumps up to 71,000 in the future.
Yeah,
Who's doing that to us?
the state.
Isn't
Well,
it?
not only that, but those years we had a lot of non-existent staff too.
Yeah, if you look at Steve, the salaries, you see how the salaries went up.
Yeah.
We were accounting, as Chairman Fisher was stating, some of the salaries weren't being accounted for here. So some of those, the big jump is because we reallocated staff to this area. And then generally, you know, it's gonna stay the same here from now on. But that is the UAL, just so you're unfunded allocated liability. So say myself, I'm here, I have to pay in a portion, and then the state takes my portion that I pay in and they invest it. And they're hoping that their investment rises faster than than the money we put in, and so they're able to ladder and grow their money. When 2008 happened and we had the huge market fluctuations, and then we had the other one a couple of years ago. Those have really driven the UAL higher. And they have made the state, make us pay for these unintended costs. They may not be costs in the future, because like I said, if the market goes, you know, bonkers, then we're back where we wanna be. But when you're going this way and then you go like this, then you have a problem. And then, so the state's making us pay for this.
Yeah, so right now the market's going down, so we're paying.
Actually, right now, the market's not going down. The market's going up right now.
Oh, really?
Market's at all-time highs today.
Oh, it went back up?
So,
It's been going up.
And I think to make it just a little bit clearer from what Nicholas was talking about is that this is based on salaries and people. And so when we reallocated the percentage to each fund,
Mhm.
if you were to take these PERS UAL and just add in each fiscal year and add them up through all the different funds, it didn't really go up that much. It's just that we took money from 5,400 people and put them in 5,200. And so that number then jumped, but the total amount for the year didn't really increase that much. Because we're just moving bodies around.
Mhm. Okay.
And like Sherry was saying, you'll see that on the consolidated expense sheet where it shows every single fund added together.
Chairman Fisher, just before we move on, we do have a comment from one.
All right, let's go to, is that
It's mystery.
Sure. Shuri, you're on.
I have a question. I don't know if I missed it because of the connection. Why is there not fiscal year 24, 25 expenses in all the departments? The only one that has it is 5,600.
Yeah, we mentioned this at the beginning.
We'll be getting that to that.
That'll be next, at the next meeting. So we are going over the non-operating revenues, so the total wages and benefits this meeting.
So when we say preliminary, we really mean it. It's not even all
Yeah,
the
it sounds like it.
line items have been developed yet, so.
Except for 5,600, it looks like.
And I believe we're gonna discuss that
We will discuss
momentarily.
5,600 because it's the biggest one, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other committee comments before we go to 5,600?
I'd just like to clarify a comment that Steve Miller made last time we were going through this is looking at FY 22-23 was kind of abnormality due to the mosquito fire. And so I like to look at percentages per year, and that what we decided to do as members of the financial committee was not even include that year because it wasn't
Yeah.
reasonable. Having to do just with salaries, not, the material costs, that may not be relevant. But it will be when we get into the material and so on.
I have a question, and I think somebody mentioned it earlier, is that I would expect to see 70% increase in staffing, I mean, staff-related charges in 5,100 to be consistent with each. But it isn't. In some, the staffing is less. It's only 10% or 6%. We're talking about the exact same categories, right?
It has to do with the job classification.
Okay,
Well, and it also has to do, and you'll be able to see this going forward, we just
Okay.
need to review it before we make it public. Is that each employee, so I have one employee. 60% of his time is in 5,400. 20% of his time is 51, and 20% is in 52. So. It really, and when they do their timesheets, they code their time to what they did that day, to each department. And so we're getting a general idea, we have a general, each employee has a percentage going across the departments, and most of my admin are all, like, I'm 100% 5,600.
Right.
So is Nick, but my admin staff out front, they do irrigation, they do distribution, they do all of that, so they're mainly administrative and customer service, but they also have, their salaries are included in 5,100. To a certain extent, and that'll explain itself when you look at the salary spreadsheet. But it should still, the salaries and the payroll taxes should be the same.
yeah, the percentages, I mean, if they are splitting their time, then everything that goes with that employee also gets split, right? The
Correct.
PERS,
It should
they're
be, yeah.
everything in the same ratio.
Absolutely.
Well, but the PERS is also depending on what their, what type of PERS member they are. We have classic, PEPRA, tier 1, tier 2. So
Okay.
each person is also, their PERS is down
I
here
see
or up
what you're
here.
saying. So depending on where they're
Where-
splitting
when
their
they
time, the
started.
percentages
Mhm.
may be different. Yes, I see.
And that also takes into account all of our current retirees,
Consistent.
which a lot are classic. Right?
No, more
Which one?
Pepper. Pepper is the new one.
No, I'm talking about current retirees,
Oh, those would be all classic.
classic,
Yeah.
so
Hmm.
that number's higher than,
That'd be 5,600, yeah, that's a, we have an ongoing expense, if you retire with the district, then you get a health benefit.
Yeah.
So that's something that's ongoing, but, yeah, and another piece to the puzzle is which jobs are classified in there and how they fit within the different unions and the different MOUs. So there's a method to the madness, yes, theoretically, it could be a percentage, but it's not, it's, yeah.
Can't be simple.
It can't be simple, unfortunately.
Okay.
We can go to 5,200 and, you know, it's generally the same explanation. You can see about a 16% increase in total wages and benefits here. So again, on the line with the 17. If you wanna go to 5,300, that's a 6% increase. So a lesser increase for this one, but as I stated before, it's based on which jobs and which classifications are there. 5,400 is 10% of an increase. And 5,600 is 11%. And then I'm just gonna skip over really quick and go to 6,100, and that's approximately a 21% increase. So that'd be the highest and there is a reason why that's the highest, and again, I can't really get into it in here yet, but I will soon.
So let me ask hopefully a general question after I just said labor negotiations are confidential, but I think this is general. So are there active MOUs that extend into the next fiscal year that you already know the numbers, or are these numbers all kind
Using
of?
proposed numbers.
Okay, so they're subject to change.
They are
Because of the
subject to
nature
change,
of, you
yes.
don't know until the sign on the bottom line. Okay,
You are 100% correct.
all right.
That's fine.
If you wanna go back up to 5,600, we can go to that, we'll go back one, there we go. This is our working detail.
Yeah.
This is what doesn't necessarily make it into the public's, draft, or excuse me, final budget. This is our behind the scenes of how we come up with the numbers.
Mhm.
So this is really where the meat and potatoes are with the district. If you wanna go in and, you know, dissect the budget, this is where you wanna do it, so. Some of the things that we are seeing is, it has been brought up a few times by the public that our CPA firm had been under professional services. And that may have been an oversight on our part, and I will say that was a good catch, that now we're going to propose a direct line item for the CPA so that we can watch their budget number as opposed to having them associated directly with professional services. So that is the one major change that we have this year. And so we are putting in approximately $120,000 for that service. And then you'll notice that the professional services budget is going to go down by 43%. So we're not just keeping the same amount of money in there and just,
Right.
you know, spreading that money around. We are actually taking it out and we're reallocating that money into a new account. So I will give Ms. Cherie her due. She made that suggestion to us and we took it and we're going to run with it. It's something that we are very thankful for. Anything else that really sticks out is, I would say, you can notice how the first two, materials and supplies and rentals, you know, we're going down a little bit.
Mhm.
I would say that those are just, you know, kind of trying to tighten into where we really want to be. You know, tightening the belt straps a little bit and making sure that we're only spending on what we need to spend on is where some of those decreases will be. And then to answer some of your questions from earlier about unintended expenses, I would say you'll likely see that across the board because those are the areas where we over budgeted for mosquito fire related expenditures. So hopefully those materials and supplies are going to be decreases in the budget across the board. So I would, you know, I can talk and talk and talk, but I think answering or asking questions might be prudent.
I have a question
Yes.
about the software licenses. It looks like it's, the budget for software and licenses is going up. And it looks like it is warranted. It seems to be because it has been going up every year.
Yeah.
Why? I'm just wondering, what's,
We have more of them. I feel like everything now is a license. And that's another Gatsby reporting, SPIDAS, which is, I forget what it stands for, but it's.
Really quick, we actually had to change this midstream. So when we originally budgeted for this, just was what she's trying to say was that it's Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB. So GASB actually came and told us that you're not doing this the right way. We've changed our way. Not that we were doing anything wrong, but we've changed our minds.
okay,
So now you have to conform to how we changed our minds and we had to add this as a line item. And the reason being is it is akin to a lease, I think is what they use the words. It's like a, is that right?
No, what, so it's, the bureaucracy just drives me bonkers. Pretty much what it is we have to report everything, every software and license that we use. And then they determine what our ongoing debt is, just like our PERS UAL. So if we have Microsoft Office 365, which we pay a license fee every single month for however many licenses we have, we're not gonna just get rid of that next month. That's an ongoing cost, unless something bigger and better comes out, that's an office system with Excel and Word or something similar. We are not going to not use Microsoft Office 65. So it's not just a software, it is a future expense. And they're calculating that into our long-term debt.
Continuing liability, not.
Yeah, they're all considered liabilities now. So the same thing with Adobe. We're not gonna get rid of Adobe, we live on PDFs. Unless something else comes along, but then that will then continue to be an ongoing expense license. So they now make us report that. And when it's mixed in with office supplies or materials and supplies or professional services, then we have to go through all these GLs check by check to see, okay, what are we paying for that's considered a software or a license? So then we just made our own line item and everything goes there.
Good.
And then we just print it out and say, here you go.
How does this? Is it relevant to look at this as having to keep records for, what is it, 7 years, that we need to keep that license for 7 years, even if we change it to keep the
No,
data
They don't
available?
care. They just project how much more money we have to say that we owe them. Or liability, and it's a future expense, so we're not paying anybody anything, but they're keeping an eye on what our liability is in case we go under or get bought out. And, you know, that would be part of our debt that we have to pass on to someone else that takes us over.
Theoretically, when they say, most of these are year licenses.
Yeah.
So, but there are people who develop multi-year leases, and I'd say that's where the Gatsby is really going after. You know, when you have these 3-5 year leases of something. I don't know if it exactly fits with our model and what we're doing here, but we still have to conform to what they're saying.
They just want the report, the end of year report to be filed and on record. So it's not, we're not owing anything like PERS, where we actually have to pay somebody our unfunded liability, but they're just keeping track of what we're doing.
I wanna make sure that answered your question, because I wasn't sure if we got you.
My concern is that I think there's some software packages that we've used in the past.
Mom is the one.
Yeah, Mom, and as an example, that we need to keep paying for that software license
3 more years.
for a period of time. And
That's
then-
the only one.
But that's the,
Because we have to. have
that's
7
my
years
question.
worth of
Are there other
data.
ones like that?
No.
Cartograph, maybe.
I don't think we have a contracted amount of years.
But I don't think it's, well, that has to
Just
do
the
with
data.
records retention,
That's
what he's
right.
asking about, is when you have to, how long you have to keep the data for. I'll have to look into that, on Cartograph maybe, but I think we also could pull a lot of that data off of Cartograph, whereas Mom, we can't.
I think cartograph is pretty redundant, like most of all of that information, besides
Goes
how much
into
a butt,
Tyler.
a bolt, a nut, or a screw, because cartograph actually
Yeah.
keeps track of every single penny.
Yeah.
Physical material that we've spent and what gets used on every job. It's detailed, but we still have all of that in the general ledger, how much we've paid for gravel and. Cartograph is just more focused on where exactly every grain of sand went. But it's not, everything we have it's redundant to a certain extent.
The other one would be Tyler, so say we were to
Yeah.
switch from Tyler to something else, then that would be a 7-year process as well.
That was my question.
So there's a couple in there, but those fees also, when you're just maintaining, they aren't typically as expensive as when you're operating with it. So maintenance fees are less, hopefully. I mean, I can't guarantee that, so don't quote me on that, but say we were to switch to another accounting software, then there is a potential to have to maintain that fee unless you could switch everything over and have the history come with it.
Come with it. Okay, thank you. That does address what I
Yeah,
was.
the reason Mom is still on there is because it was so hard to go from that old software to the new software. They don't even talk the same language. It's like one is talking, Latin and one is trying to talk English and there's no Rosetta Stone in between.
Good now.
It was a good analogy.
Gee, that's good. Yeah.
I don't know if there was a comment.
My thing was about moms, and are we gonna have formal services for mom in 3 years?
You can go to the pallbearers.
Good idea.
That server's really old. We don't use it anymore, but it's there.
I lost track of where we're at on comments. Any comments from any other comments? Get back on track.
You're in charge, so, if we have any more on 5,600, if you think that there's something we shouldn't do, there probably will be a few changes here and there, some reductions. There is probably a couple more additions or, where some accounts may go up slightly, just to go over, changes in dues or other kind of structures. So, this is pretty well close, so if there's something you see, we can reduce, there's chances to reduce, and I think we'll kind of end up somewhere around this area.
And I just also wanted to point out that most of these line items will have a miscellaneous. And that's because we know we're gonna use something over and over again every year, but it's $19 a month. So it comes out to $200.
Right.
And I don't wanna list them all,
Right.
but if you wanted more detail, I could give you all that detail. I'm just not gonna.
And I would say the big
Publish it all.
takeaway is that, we're about 6% less than last year,
Yeah,
so I'd say that's pretty good.
yeah.
like I said, that may fluctuate 1 or 2% top or bottom. So, I would say the goal is to keep it at 6 or, less.
That's really great.
Yeah, I think that's very good. That's
Thank you.
1% noted, yeah.
Mr. Fisher, if you have any other questions from your committee, I can move on to the capital improvement plan.
So it's two actions, possible actions, and I think maybe we could take both of these up in whole at the end, that it's develop recommendations for staff to implement. So I think we do have an opportunity here to
Yeah, absolutely.
make recommendations,
Absolutely.
but we'll make those I'll propose that we hear the capital improvement plan budget. And then if the committee has any recommendations to staff for what to bring back at our next meeting or recommendations in the development, we'll just take that together as an action item at the end of both.
Sure.
Collectively for item 6. So go ahead with capital improvement plan.
So what we're gonna do here is go over what is in the budget and then what's gonna roll over or what is going to be completed in this year. And so anything that will roll over would be, in next year's. One of my caveats is we are in the middle of a potential cost of service analysis. So, it's very prudent to allow them to analyze the reports and the system that we have here, and any potential projects that they see can be ultimately rolled into a long-term capital improvement plan. So my thought process is not to develop one in-house, but just to leapfrog into the next year of what we planned, and then take any hangers on from last year and continue on with those. So we have not had or not found anybody to inspect the tunnel, so we are officially taking volunteers for who wants to ride through the tunnel on a little cart and make sure that everything is copacetic in there. So there will be an application in the lobby. Facetiously.
Are you claustrophobic?
Exactly. Yeah, we don't know. Well, I hope nobody's living in there. There's water rushing through there all the time, so.
It could be a shark.
Could be a shark. We could totally have a shark in there. I think Steve is volunteering because he wants to see what's in there.
I need light.
The infrastructure replacement is, that is to expand this room or potentially expand the building. We're running into some problems with the age of the building that may or may not be a feasible alternative. There may be alternatives that were more feasible, so we probably will not spend that even in next fiscal year. I just can't foresee it right now. There's a chance we may with, the kind of, caveat would be to put a portable somewhere so that we have that restroom, we have that in one building. It just won't be inside this physical building. We have an area located adjacent on the property that we may be able to do that, but we're still doing a lot of analysis on this. Unfortunately, these old cinder block buildings, they don't take well to retrofit. Distribution tank, we are working on that being completed this fiscal year, so that will not move forward. Paving, I still believe we're working on getting a paving contractor. We did replace 2 of our vehicles, so that is something that we will not be doing. However, we do see a need to replace the other vehicle, as was pointed out by one of our members of the public. We have a rental right here now, and it's for a 5-ton dump truck, and we are looking to either replace that with a 10-wheel dump truck or another 5-wheel dump truck. 5-ton dump truck. So that is an expense that we foresee coming before the end of the fiscal year. And that has kind of a twofold need. You are all aware that we won a grant for some new equipment. Unfortunately, one of our pieces of equipment was a little too large for some of our equipment here, for one of our trailers here, so we had to purchase a new trailer so that we could safely get it around the district, and now we don't have a vehicle to pull that trailer, so we're kind of a rock and a hard place argument, unfortunately. So there's, you asked some questions about the mosquito fire mitigation, that is also there. So most of those costs have already been borne by the district. we did put that into place and we did kind of move things around within the CIP. The master meters, those are all currently now being installed. The, priority number 2, the pump station retrofits, we are not going to pursue those. We actually received, a grant from Senator Alvaro Gil. So we are using some of that money from the grant to do some of these upgrades. We're putting in generators and other things. The safety walkways, I believe we completed all but 2 of them. So we were able to do those cheaper than we had assumed. So those, we are not doing any more of those this year, I believe. The treated water line replacement, I don't think we've identified any major treated water lines that we're going to replace this season, so that's not going to be moving forward. Pressure regulating valves, that is, we are doing those on a piecemeal basis, so no major expenditures there. The annual canal lining, that we have a grant that we are working on to line the canals, so that will not come in the regular funding, but we will be utilizing the grant funding. Replacing the air release valves, so we have ordered those and we are actually replacing those when weather permits, so that is something that we are currently working on. Solar, I don't foresee solar being a out of pocket expense where we have to come and find reserve money for millions of dollars. We are looking currently at financing a solar project, because we can either pay to build a piece of infrastructure or we can pay PG&E, and I would much rather pay to build a piece of infrastructure, and so we can finance and it'd be about the same cost. So 1-for-1 to get power through financing, or 1-to-1 to get power through PG&E, and those costs are continuing to rise with PG&E. SCADA upgrades, so we do not have anything budgeted for that. That is something that we have budgeted a couple of years down the line, because we do see some needs to increase the communication with a few of our places around the district. CIP project for zone. Zone is also known as ALT, or the wastewater facilities. So we are proposing to upgrade the lift station. I don't think that's going to happen in this fiscal year. More likely to happen in next fiscal year. And that will also come with the solar. I think that's going to happen at the same time. We are still looking to install the water line, and that is more, it's a smaller project. It's trenching, installing a pipe that we can get hose bibs and other water access to these fields when we have an emergency, so that we can access, clean, safe water down there. A wastewater treatment plant, that is a few years down the line. My ultimate goal is to take that water that is being put into the leach field, potentially treat it, and utilize it at the golf course there within ALT. That would be something to use a waste product into a good product. So, and then if we move over to the grant funding, so we've had a good luck. We did get the USBR grant for canal lining, as I mentioned. So that's a project that we're just waiting for the environmental review to finish there. So that's a 3-year project. We hope to have about 1,500 feet of canal done. I don't think it's going to take us 3 years. At least I hope not. Maybe 2. The dredging. So we're kind of on hold with the dredging. Our initial estimates with FEMA were, as you see, $285,000. When we did our engineering estimate, it came in about $1.5, $1.6 million just from the fire damage. So that 285 is definitely not something that we're going to see. There is also dredging that needs to happen from before the fire. And so we're trying to account for that as well. So we're still trying to determine how much it's going to cost. The thing we're trying to determine now is both transportation and whether it's going to be a environmental concern to get rid of the materials. Sometimes these soils can have heavy metals or other types of contaminants in them. And so we're doing some coring samples right now to see what it's going to cost to dispose of them. We've had some initial estimates between $4 and $6 million to do a full dredge on the reservoir.
No possibility for aggregate production or any kind of marketable product out of it?
Likely. So we have some avenues that we're working on, that kind of fall into that, can't discuss at this current moment. But there are some things that we're hoping to offset some of those costs.
Gold recovery.
Yeah, cool.
Hey, I mean, I didn't even think about that. Get somebody out there panning, that's, I can hire somebody to do that, you know?
I dread,
Oh, what do they call those things?
dredge.
No,
Loose box.
Loose box. Yeah, if it was only that easy.
Hey, Nick, can I ask a question?
Of course.
So this FEMA grant that we received for 285, we're finding that it's so much more.
Yes.
So how does that, I mean, does FEMA increase the grant money? Can we apply for more? How does that?
So they
work?
haven't given us that money. That's kind of their initial award that, yay, we're gonna give you the money.
Okay,
When we came back and told them it's this, you know, our engineer went in, did all the work, and it's this much more. They're kind of balking, and obviously, because it's a huge expense and increase. So we're still negotiating with them,
Okay.
and we're hoping that we can continue to get that funding. There are other avenues that we're pursuing to have some of that paid for.
okay.
The AMI meters and infrastructure generators, so that money is actually in our account. That will be on the board to be done. So for example, there's the one set of properties in ALT. There's a couple in other areas around the district that don't have generators for their booster pumps, and so all of those problems should be fixed before the end of the fiscal year. Canal pipeline improvements, we are still waiting to hear back from FEMA and Cal OES on that, the HMPG grant or a hazard mitigation grant. Unfortunately, that we were told from the beginning that could be an 18-month process, and I'm sure they're gonna take every minute of that 18 months to determine whether or not we get the money. As was previously mentioned, we were able to win the grant for a new skid steer and masticator and the excavator, so those, I think they're gonna be delivered here pretty soon, so we should have some new shiny pieces of equipment in the works, and those actually came in a little less than we originally budgeted for, 154 for the excavator and 157 for the, 154 for the skid and 157 for the excavator. Sweetwater, so that's part of the federal appropriation. We've all seen the news, or if you haven't, the news is not promising for what's going on in Washington DC. I have been assured that this money is kind of there. We just have to wait for the last few votes. I can't answer when they're gonna happen. So that is a few months down the line. And it's really funny because they're actually already seeking applications for the next round of appropriation funding, and we're still waiting on this one. So, you know, we're gonna put in for more money and hopefully we get a big check twice. The water wheels, so I had kind of originally not wanted to do the water wheels, but I went to a conference and we spoke with a company that wants to come in and do water wheels, and we're not gonna pay for anything. They're gonna give us an agreement similar to how we have with our hydro now, where they pay us a portion of their power generation. And then so we basically are leasing the water in the canal, and they're gonna let it run through their turbine, and they're gonna pay us for the pleasure. So I think that's a great idea. If we don't have to pay for anything, we can, you know, have another revenue source that is not any of our concern, really. We just have to basically cash a check. And then lastly is, and it's not on here, in regard to the solar, is we are looking into potentially putting a larger solar field here at the office for a revenue source that would generate a community-based solar project. So that is something that we've been looking at, which would bring in additional revenue. And again, that would be a project where we would partner with somebody else. So they would come in, they would do all the construction. We would get leasing revenue, and we would get power revenue and power offset. So kind of a win-win-win for us. So that is my analysis of what we've done this year and kind of what's gonna move forward. But then again, like I stated, much of this could change with the cost of service analysis, with the rate study, and with the Castle study that's going to be coming to the board within the next 1 or 2 board meetings. And so all that's gonna be taken into account to cost of service.
The Castle study is what?
That is, the infrastructure analysis or asset management analysis of where our infrastructure is, what needs work, what is in disrepair, kind of a long-term look at how much everything is going to cost to continue to maintain the district into the, 50 years in the future.
Does that tie into the study that we're doing now for the, I want to say fee study, but I'm getting my.
Rate study.
Rate
The
study.
rate study, yeah.
It's a cost of service analysis, is actually what they're called. I know everyone's called rate study. It's a cost of service analysis. And so, yes, it's probably the number one piece to that cost of service
Okay.
analysis.
So it'll feed into that.
100%, yes.
Does that Castle study take into account just fixed assets or equipment as well?
Fixed, are you referring to like tractors and stuff like that?
All these things you're talking about that you just got grant money for that'll
Uh,
need to be replaced someday.
So fixed assets is more of what the Castle side is looking at. The
Okay.
fixed, the equipment assets are going to be looked at by the consultant
Okay.
who is going to, take a look at the lifespan of our equipment, and then he will take into account trucks. He'll take into account, computers. They'll look at everything. They do a pretty comprehensive analysis of everything that we have and what the lifespan is and when it needs to be replaced.
Very good. Have any comments from the committee before we go to public comments? Sure.
Quick a question, the develop alternative water sources, that 85,000, is that for a study?
That is to do environmental on Onion Creek and Otter Creek.
So, okay,
So I didn't mean to miss that. I apologize. Those funds, we started to do Otter Creek, which is a small appropriative right, and we are redeveloping that and making it flow back into our system. And then the larger overall project is to do the environmental on Onion Creek, which I will also share that we've applied to Kevin Kiley's office to do a feasibility study to continue developing alternative water supplies. That could be anywhere from building our hydro to building new reservoirs. So it's a pretty broad feasibility study that we're going to be seeking approximately $1 million to finalize environmental and all the different pieces to that puzzle that are gonna go up there.
$1 million doesn't go very far. Something like that's a big, that's a lot.
Yeah, so this is just none of the actual construction. This is just the construction, feasibility and environmental work. Yeah, I know, but $1 million does not go very far anymore.
Mr. Dowd, Mr. Dowd.
The skid steer and the excavator are on their way shortly.
Yeah, they've been ordered. I have not gotten estimated time arrival. Unfortunately, Adam is at a training this week, so they were ordered 2 weeks ago, so I hope to see any day now.
And the trailer is in. You got
The trailer is here.
30K trailer.
30K
But you need to rent a dump truck, a 3-axle dump truck to pull that thing.
So we don't need a 3-axle. We can use a 2-axle.
Oh,
But we are proposing to purchase a 10-wheel dump truck.
Mm.
So we can put material and the piece of equipment.
depending on the deck size of that trailer, you might be able to haul 2 pieces of equipment on that.
I would not recommend it. The deck size is a pretty,
Depends on the tire rating.
it's a pretty good sized trailer.
You
We
can
actually,
throw a lot of stuff on them things.
we purchased a used trailer, so we purchased an auctioned used 2003 trailer, so we didn't even go out and buy a new one. We just went and found one that was located in Modesto and paid about a third to a quarter of what a brand new one would have cost. And we are going to actually surplus the old one, the 20K trailer, so it'll be more or less a 1-to-1 trade for trailers. But yes, we're looking for some sort of a piece of equipment to pull that trailer around now.
You got all the chains and tie downs and everything.
All right, let's go to Cherie online.
Over on the CIP, on the left, it has year-to-date expenditures. There's no total. It doesn't have the date it's through. I'm assuming it's 1/31. And also the zone shouldn't be included in the, water CIP.
No. That's why it's
See where it
separated
goes.
out.
Yeah, but the zone is separate than water, so that there should have, you know, the 210 instead of the 313.
You can just cross it
The
out.
bottom
but-
line.
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
you're right, just the formula got.
Well, so, because I'm curious as how much we spent, I roughly added it up. It looks like a $500,000 so far, because that total isn't in there. So we spent about half.
You're probably right with your math. Just looking at it quickly, you're probably close, yes. I apologize for not, should have totaled it.
Is that it?
Yes.
All right.
That is all I have.
Okay. So let me bring it back to the action items that are similar for both A and B of number 6, develop recommendations for staff to implement. Are there any recommendations that the committee wants to bring up for staff to bring back at our March meeting for consideration or for the rest of this budget process?
If I could just, I know you're asking for something, before we do that, I will try my darndest to get the materials and supplies to you, so you have some time to review it before even, I want to try to get it to you as close to the beginning of March as possible.
That would be good. However, let me say this, most of what you've given us today is, I don't want to call them fixed costs, but there's nothing really discretionary about it other than overtime. In overtime, you're running consistent with what you currently run, which is entirely reasonable. So I don't expect these numbers to change very much. If you're very close on your MOUs, if you're comfortable with what your proposals are, these are just factoring in what it's gonna be. And you don't have a lot of discretion to determine what it's gonna be.
That is correct.
So the numbers are pretty much what they are. So I'm fine with, even though we got this late, like it's fine. I don't have a problem.
Any other recommendations or comments?
You're gonna include the Fund 100, the revenue,
And 100.
the revenue sources.
Yes, that'll be part of the next step. We're already developing them. They're just, they weren't ready for printing, so yeah.
Especially this, yeah, I understand.
We're still trying to figure out the property tax, why we have an extra 200,000 of property tax.
I'm kind of just crossing my fingers that happens again in May.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
Duarte's Vineyard had a good year last year. Maybe it came from there.
So that property tax is a portion of the ad valorem plus a dedicated.
It's all of the ad valorem. We
It's all ad valorem.
we get 2 installments every year. We budgeted for 1.9, and right now we're already at 1.2, so. Actually, almost 1.3, I think, right? Yeah. So if the second installment, typically you get half and half. So if the second installment comes in the same, could be approximately 400,000 extra dollars, which would.
I'm assuming though that a lot of people may have paid in full, since we have a lot of out of towners
And it could be,
pay their property taxes.
but so the big
So
problem we
first
had
one's always bigger.
last year, they just sent us 1 check.
Well, cause Bob died or Bob retired and no one took over his job.
So literally, we just
Oh
got
my God.
1 huge check last year. And so it was really hard for us to gauge, what half was. We took the big check that they gave us and that's what we allocated because it's easy to do it that way. But now when they send us half again, it's hard to know if half is coming and then half is coming, or if we have extra people paying, or, property taxes have gone up or assessments have gone up. So we're still trying to figure that out. And we have reached out to the county and Bob died.
You retired, sorry.
So there's a new
Sorry,
Bob now,
Bob.
right?
There's a new
There's a
Bob.
new Bob.
Okay.
Yes, there is a new Bob now.
That's good. Wow.
So I'm not sure if this is a recommendation or just stating the obvious, but by the time we get back here in March, we should have more of the discretionary
A
and
lot more.
the material and and those line items put together for us to try to get them out with.
By March, you
Few
should
days of
have
review.
a fairly final-ish draft that can have comments and, hey, we're spending too much money here, or, you know, what can we do about, you know, lowering these costs?
All right,
Chairman.
yes.
Are there any more, are we continue to have any more, requests in the public for any more finance committee membership?
We have not.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that when we do the next item.
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped.
You're good, you're good, you're good. I'm not sure if that's a hang-on question, hand raised, but we do have a Sharif and raised stuff.
I just had a comment for the committee. I know that when I looked at this last year is that I went beyond backwards from FY 21-22. Is it the committee's pleasure to have more data on a sheet as far as going back to have some more historical analysis, or is going back to 2021 adequate from your perspective? I know that I went back and I looked at a 5-year just to try to get a feel. It's something that I think it's easy to pull out.
Yeah.
Makes the print smaller even.
It does, yeah, I mean, I agree, especially like you were saying, when you have an anomalous year because of an emergency, you kind of have to, in your mind, do a little bit of a curve fit, you know, if your rates are doing that, you can still kind of in your mind do that curve fit if you have the 4 or 5 years of history, so. I don't know, is Jessica, what?
So the reason, in the individual funds that was cut off is because that information was in MOM.
Okay,
And during that time, it's really hard, you can run specific account reports and vendor reports, but you can't run a general ledger like this. It comes out completely different and I couldn't figure it out. And then Stephanie was the only other person that's still here since anyone used MOM. So she couldn't figure it out. But I do have historical data on the consolidated expenses. So when it shows each account through all the funds, how much we spent all the way going down, I can do it consolidated all the way back to 2017 because I have that from Steve Palmer. But when it comes to individual accounts, the account numbers are even not, they were
Yeah.
like 51, 54, 71, 72. They don't
align.
align, they
It
don't,
would be very confusing to try to, put the whole picture together.
we didn't have as many accounts as we have now, so it was very broad. So I tried making that work and I got the consolidated, you'll see it. I have it going back to 2017.
Okay.
But trying to figure out what fit into each of these different departments. I mean, they weren't even called the same thing. It was like water and distribution and irrigation.
Yeah.
They weren't even named the same. So and there's no one else that still works here that would have the historical.
yeah, definitely value.
I mean, maybe
finding it.
Cherie, she probably has all the reports from back then.
We depend a lot on Cherie. Yeah, it's definitely a value in finding an accounting system you like and trying to stick with it for a while. Those future years pay dividends. Okay, so we trust that you'll give us what you can and without having to beat your head against the wall.
I have the consolidated expenses. I have that spreadsheet. I was so happy when I found it.
All right. Cherie, did you have any other comments before we may or may not make a motion here, but any other comments specific to our action items?
Looks like she lowered her hand.
Oh, okay, all right, we'll take that as a no. Any other direction? I'll just say this as a suggestion. Don't know if it even needs to be a motion, but you know, particularly as we are about to go into a rate study, and I know in my 30 years here, there's probably been nothing that's caused more conflict on the Georgetown Divide than rate studies. You know, when you're starting to tell people that, you know, what it's gonna cost them to get their water. So everything we can possibly do to make things clear. So for a couple of examples that caught my attention on the proposed budget. As you're scrubbing through it, coming back through any acronyms that can be spelled out that are not clear, making sure that any of the totals at the bottom are people can follow how those sum totals at the bottom and things got there. So just a general statement, you know, there's no time like now to be very clear so that people can look at these things follow the logic, see that we're being transparent. Bring the whole community along with us as we go into the next rate study.
I think we can definitely do that.
You mentioned, a cost of service study as opposed to a rate study.
That's
And I'm
the,
thinking that if we could frame it, this is the cost to do it service, that
That's why
might
it's
be.
called.
yeah,
It's
it's
just
actually,
like changing the ALT to Sweetwater. I mean, let's talk about a water treatment for the Divide, not ALT. I think maybe if we change our language to cost of service.
Yep.
Maybe,
there's.
because we have to charge the cost of service.
It is technically called a cost of service analysis. So, I would say rate study is the nomenclature, common name for a plant type of thing. If you want to call it what it is, it's a cost of service analysis.
Because I would say I can live with my cost of service going up on my rates.
Well, and there was a lot of sticker shocks when we came out of COVID and started locking people off and charging late fees at the same time. But that, it's been over a year now and there's only one or two squeaky wheels. So I feel like we'll get slammed in the beginning, but then it's life. You just gotta adapt and move on.
Yeah, we definitely want to be data driven. We want to make sure that people can see the sense in it, the logic in it. And I do want to, I'll just say this right up front. I remember I wasn't on the committee, but it was one of the things that interested me in this and being on the committee. In the last study, I looked at one of the drafts and I remember people just going to war over some of the numbers that were just errors. And so being clear about what a draft is, you're liable to see numbers that have the decimal point in the wrong place. That's why we have drafts. That's why we have us. That's why we are going to give the public plenty of opportunity to comb over it, to look at it, to be assured that, whatever they're paying, they understand the logic behind what they're paying. So.
I completely agree with you. 100%.
Also, I think, I just wanted to add, I don't know what this draft study is going to look like, the study, but just have, maybe a page in there that has bullets of, these are the drivers, main drivers. One at a glance.
They're pretty
very
comprehensive.
general.
It's going to do a lot. It's gonna explain almost everything, and you'll have it'll look like the budget, but it'll be the other way. So instead of looking backwards, it's gonna be the budget looking forward. And so what they're gonna say is, here's where your expenses are today. And then we're gonna look at the salaries, moving forward based on MOUs, based on COLAs. They're gonna take some, not liberties is not the right word, but they're gonna do some analysis over what they suspect things may cost in the future. And they're going to increase those costs or incorporate those costs into the rate study. And then they're also going to look at inflationary costs. They're also going to look at how we pay to ensure that there's infrastructure that is going to continue to be maintained, and how we take a little piece of, God forbid the dam goes down. How much is it gonna cost to replace the dam? There's a little piece of that goes into a fund every year that they keep putting into a fund. And so all of that will be for 5 years. They're gonna look forward for 5 years to make sure that we have the adequate costs. They're pretty comprehensive.
I think that we get anomalies every year. And I think that some of the anomalies, like the mosquito fire, everybody's got that one figured out. But we have anomalies that aren't that big, but they are significant, and maybe to include paragraphs about anomalies, the half a dozen anomalies that we faced, or the 3 anomalies that we faced, or that also gets a lot of people quieted down before they get their knickers in a knot. So, just to think about that, we've got something that, went through the moon on one particular item and it created a problem, then, you may have noticed XXX and here's YYY. And, then people say, okay, instead of getting 42 phone calls from 42 different people and having to explain it, so.
An example of that, I think, is when the main water line went down to the school.
Exactly.
And the overtime paid for students to miss a day of school.
Yeah.
That's an anomaly. And the district got an award for that.
Sure.
And, you know, those are the kinds of things that actually make us look better to the organization than worse, so. If we're upfront about it, then they don't have their knickers up before, you know, before we calm them down.
And speaking about getting in front of it or presenting our transparency and getting ahead of it, we'll have the social media detractors making accusations and claims, those same people that don't show up to meetings like this or our board meetings, that will throw a wrench into the works. And when we have the town halls and workshops and forums, they'll be getting the rate study surveys and they'll be getting it straight from the staff and the board and the people doing the study, and they'll be getting the real raw data, and we'll get in front of it ahead of time. And like in a bank, when they train their tellers on how to detect counterfeit currency, they show them the real currency. So anything that's not real, like the original is not true. It's not real. So I see that as in the town hall when we're presenting the data straight from the horse's mouth. Those same people, we may get 50 or 100 people, not just two, Sheree and Steve. They'll hopefully be advocates for us, sharing the real news and be out there in social media defending us when they see the false news in the public, arena out there. And I also wanted to say that the quality and the caliber and the contributions made by this finance committee I'm very grateful. I mean, 2 years ago, we would be discussing quarterly, maybe. Before, we were so grateful just to have a finance committee, but when we finally got the finance committee, we were hoping to get data back a year from quarterly statements instead of monthly, instead of talking about, can we go back 5 years? So and like Steve has mentioned before, we could iron out things monthly and talk about them and get things smoothed out and resolved linearly instead of trying to think back 3 months ago when we got, what I'm saying? We won't have to have valleys and peaks. We're just kind of taking care of it as we go. And looking back 2 years, this was a great process. And I just wanted to thank the team we have and hopefully recruit 1 or 2 more to pick up the load. So I just want to say, it's great to be a part of this team.
We've come a long way.
Thank you.
We've come a long way, baby.
Yeah. So that's all I want.
Yeah, speaking from personal experience, when we tried to get these things that we talk about today, which everybody is just impressed with, it was brought up some years back and they attempted to throw 2 of the people off the committee because they brought it up.
Yeah.
Those are the doctors.
Yes.
You're off, Steve.
Hey, I've been thrown off once, I guess I can get.
No, I would reiterate and second that. So I appreciate your insight and we will continue to meet and continue to give you the information and we love that you guys will be the front lines for us.
It'd be important for folks to know too, that in the time between the last service study and now, we've also beat the bushes for other forms of revenue. And I applaud the work of Mitch and everybody else and Steve, everybody on this committee and the board for finding a much more lucrative investment package for us. So we're not just going to the ratepayers first and saying, make it up. You've done a great job of beating the bushes for other revenue sources. Tremendous job of grants, just looking at this list of grants. I'm a grant writer. They're not hard. They're not easy to get. They're very difficult. We've gotten, I've been turned down probably 5 times for every one I get. So there's a lot of work behind this. Ratepayers need to know that their district has beat the bushes hard for other revenue before we've come back to them. If we need to go back to them. So
Very much so.
all right. Any finance committee member comments or reports in general for the committee?
So the only report that I have is, we do have 3 openings for the committee, so if you know any of your friends or anybody you wanna advertise for, we are still advertising for those 3 openings. And so anytime we have anybody else apply, just reach out to myself or Liz and we can get you, voted on by the board, hopefully.
And your most recent ad I recall didn't imply that you had to be an accountant. It did, yeah, it kind of come one, come all, anybody that could contribute as a community,
Yes. We don't need you.
think outside the
to-
box.
Yeah. And we don't need you to be a CFO by any stretch. We just need you to come in and bring some common sense and tell us what we think is right and what we think is wrong.
All right, item 8, any agenda items for the next finance committee meeting, other than the obvious, which is the budget? Pizza?
They'll make that happen.
I second that.
Let's see, so next meeting date, back here, March 28th, 2024, that'll be 3 o'clock. I think everybody's good with that. Thank you for getting out the entire next year's schedule for us, so everybody can see that coming up. With that, do I have a motion for,
I make a motion to quit.
do we have a motion to quit, and do we have a second?
I second.
All right, we are adjourned and quit.